Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Future of Sports. I'm your host, Max Knight, and this episode is all about how technology can help with the treatment and prevention of sports injuries. So today we're going to talk about the newest and coolest research pertaining to sports injuries. Quickly, here's today's panel. We have a couple of our most accomplished athletic trainers at Faith Christian High School in Lafayette, Indiana. There's Elena Robinson. What's up, Elena? How you doing?
Hello, hello. Just another busy and exciting day here. So as Max already mentioned, I'm an athletic trainer at Faith Christian School in Lafayette, Indiana. I am also a student within Indiana State University's Doctorate of Athletic Training program. I am so happy to be here discussing yet another cool topic within sports medicine.
All right. Well, thanks for waking up early this morning and being on the show. Yeah, thank you. And all the way down in Terre Haute, Indiana, watching over Indiana State University's women's swim and diving team is Tara Armstrong. How are you today, Tara Armstrong?
What up, Max? I'm just kind of relaxing before I dive into treatments later this afternoon.
But, all right. I see what you did there. All right. So tell us a little bit about yourself there, Tara.
Well, like you've mentioned, I am an athletic trainer working as a graduate assistant for the women's swim and dive team at Indiana State University. And just like Elena, I am a student within the Doctorate of Athletic Training program at Indiana State University. So I'm just very excited to be here, and I can't wait to start this discussion.
All right. Yeah. Thank you again for waking up early and being on the show. We appreciate it. All right. Last but not least, there's myself. Like I said earlier, my name is Max Knight, and I am an athletic trainer as well, working at Seeger High School near Lafayette, Indiana. I also am a student in Indiana State's Doctorate of Athletic Training program, and I am enjoying every single minute of it. So I'm super excited to have Tara and Elena both here with me today, again, to discuss a little bit about this new hot topic within sports injuries. And again, this is about how technology can help in the treatment and prevention of sports injuries. Sorry, I had a little bird pop in the office here. So kind of just briefly here, there's just basic technology that's been used in sports injuries. So mainly we tend to start seeing cell phones, tablets, apps, social media. Those are kind of just the brief things we've been starting to see here. You know, on Instagram, YouTube, people are posting their own injury prevention tips, tricks, and things like that. You know, a few pros about this is that, you know, we're able to increase the amount of healthcare delivery to the general public. It's more of like a direct contact type of thing. We can increase our own professional knowledge. So Tara could be sharing something on YouTube, and I could, you know, look up that video about chronic ankle instability that she posted with some rehab exercises or tips or something like that. You know, also it's really good for patient education and just general public health awareness. A few cons I know, you know, there are pitfalls to technology. We all know that. But, you know, a few pitfalls here is, you know, these apps, these videos, they may lack evidence-based content. So some people may not, you know, incorporate that research in there. It can be a risk to healthcare providers. It can be, you know, a problem with patient health information and their overall health status. Also, you know, people may not be digitally literate, where they may not, you know, be able how to use this type of technology. And some of the information, they can be too concise or too watered down. So that's just a few things I've seen, you know, with technology within kind of sports injuries here. So I know there's a lot more information out there. So Elena, how about you tell us your recent interest in technology with treatment and prevention? I know you were talking about that before we kind of had this meeting here. So go ahead. The floor is yours.
Of course, Max. So actually, I recently read up on this article that was titled Sports Injury Prevention in Your Pocket. And it reviewed like many apps, I think about 18 apps total that focused on prevention and rehabilitation, general health, fitness, etc. That was kind of the inclusion criteria. And these apps were located on iPhones and iPads. But of those 18 apps, only apparently 4 of those apps actually contained claims that were evidence-based. So there was evidence available within those apps that people could refer to and cite and understand the information better, right? So 3 of those apps, give you an example, they were titled Ankle, I think Elastoplast, and I Prevent ACL Injuries. So the ankle app focused on the implementation of neuromuscular training when it comes to ankle sprains. The Elastoplast app focused on kind of a random assortment, so focused on taping strategies for ankles, knees, specifically like MCL taping, as well as like dental injury prevention, so how to properly use fitted mouth guards or how to properly fit mouth guards. So a little bit random, but still helpful for the general public. And then the I Prevent ACL Injuries was actually not really necessarily a program. It actually consisted of just like a narrated video that showed a combination of exercises that you could do to help prevent an ACL sprain or tear. So pretty cool variety with just those 3 apps. And it's really cool and exciting to have those types of apps available. But it seems like the problem is that evidence-based apps for prevention or treatment of sports injuries are lacking. So the evidence behind these apps are lacking. While there's a lot more, like of those 18 apps, all those apps were going to be useful in some way, but the evidence is lacking. So it shows kind of a need for researchers and technologists to almost like have a label for these apps in order to rate them based on their content and the evidence available. So anyways, that's just a little bit of a side rant on public use for these apps. But for fun though, after I read the article, I decided to go ahead and look up on my own phone, an awesome Android, if there were any apps available. So I'm gonna do it right now, just for proof and for funsies. But anyway, so I looked up an example on the App Store of ankle rehabilitation. And it's really cool. So several apps just popped up when I'd search ankle rehab, and I don't think you're gonna really be able to see my phone, but that's kind of like, yeah, and then the list keeps going, right? So ankle sprain, physical therapy, how to treat an ankle sprain, physiotherapy exercises, the Rehab Guru Pro app on the Androids I've actually personally looked into, and it's like personalized exercise plans for just about anything that you could think of. So that one's really helpful. There's upper extremity apps like shoulder rehabilitation, things like that. So just on my phone alone, there's a lot of apps available. And so obviously I didn't look into the evidence of each app. I still think it's awesome that these are out there, and probably will start recommending a few to the patients that I work with, obviously with a little side review on the evidence, but still, I think it's really cool that they're out there.
Yeah, me too. I actually was kind of perusing the other night, and I found actually, an ankle strengthening app. The only downside is that it's in Dutch, and it doesn't have any other versions or anything like that. But I mean, it is all in. It has every single exercise. It has like proprioception stuff. It literally has everything, anything you could possibly need to strengthen the ankle, treat an ankle sprain, or any sort of ankle injury. And this would be very beneficial to show patients this. But again, they would have to be very proficient in Dutch. So and again, there isn't too much evidence, on this app or anything like that to actually see if it's effective or not. But there is stuff out there, and it's really, really good to know, and that's kind of promising for the future. So thank you, Elena, for that really good talk about apps there. Now, I do dabble here and there, and I read the NATA newsletter. And Tara and I, we were talking about this last week, but we were talking a little bit about the newsletter. So Tara, what's going on in the NATA newsletter lately?
Yes, thank you, Max. I really enjoyed our discussion last week, and I'm glad we could talk about it today. So just this past month, NATA put out their November issue. And one of the articles within that issue where they interviewed Aaron Nelson, the head athletic trainer for the Phoenix Suns. So he went into a little detail about the current technology they are using within their organization. So to start, all athletes on the Phoenix Suns receive baseline testing using Fusionetics technology. So this technology is used to test body movement and muscle function. It also provides a full body evaluation that helps assess which muscles may need extra attention, whether that be flexibility or strength, and then it can help recorrect biomechanical issues that may be happening. So they continue to use this test periodically throughout the season as well to show the patient improvement over the course of the season. And to refer to earlier, the Fusionetics technology is also available as an app. So they that lets the clinicians kind of perform this on the road and perform road testing when needed. That way they can still keep up with their continuous testing throughout the course of the season. So the Phoenix Suns also utilized other forms of technology throughout their entire season. So they use the Delos postural proprioceptive system, and that's used every 2 weeks to evaluate lower extremity stability and balance. And they also use exertion monitoring devices such as the Connexon device. So that device is used almost daily to track workload and then make sure that the patients are not overexerting themselves. So just those three were mentioned throughout the article in the newsletter, and it just kind of touched on the technology they're currently using there.
Real quick, Tara, I actually had a question on that. So you said they measured patient outcomes. Did they give any details on any of the improved patient outcomes or if there was a lack of improvement?
Unfortunately, there was no direct data mentioned in the newsletter in regards to the improvement seen specifically at the Phoenix Suns. So I'm sure there might be some evidence out there for the generalized effectiveness of any of those three technologies with patient outcomes. But specifically for their organization, they used it when prescribing preventative interventions and then to track those patients' progress over time. So just to touch a little further on what head athletic trainer Aaron Nelson talked about in the newsletter, he states that technology is here to stay. And so it's important for us as athletic trainers to be up to date with the latest developments. So after looking at the newsletter and learning more about these different technology advances, I took a look at social marketing. So how can we stay up to date and also disseminate that information to the rest of the general population, making sure we're staying up to date and then everyone else can kind of be up to date as well. So for us as clinicians, staying in the media is going to be crucial. Not only for us to discover new technological advances, but to also attract consumers. So to get that buy-in for these products, hopefully for some preventative purposes. So originally utilized on a broader scope for mass media and health promotion campaigns, social marketing can also be applied within the sports injury prevention discipline. So in an article by Newton, Ewing, and Finch, they actually mentioned some strategies on how to disseminate this information to our consumers. So one, I have this listed down because I knew I'd forget it. So one is to maximize consumer values and to highlight the importance of the potential product. So making sure the consumer realizes the benefits and it's outweighing their costs of actually implementing these preventative measures. Two is understanding consumer motivations of their target audience. So the why behind the product. Why would these consumers or these patients want to utilize these technological advances? Three, it can be an opportunity for behavior change. So they listed an example of a ski resort in Colorado actually giving helmets as part of their package. And so that influenced those skiers to practice safe participation. So obviously it's just techniques like that. And then lastly, they wanted to focus on identifying how attractive exchanges can be achieved and on developing interventions that are truly consumer oriented. So we just want to put the patient first and kind of their needs and assess that when marketing these products. So I wanted to throw a question back at you guys. How are you currently gaining your information about either new technology advances or different preventative strategies?
I'm gonna jump in here real quick. Right now, I feel I'm pretty active on Twitter and Instagram, and I like searching for or seeing kind of what other clinicians are doing as far as like preventative stuff for the ankle, the hip, but I also still kind of resort to doing the research, finding that evidence-based research first before I mainly go into social media and see kind of what's out there. But yeah, that's pretty much all I do at the moment. But I think Twitter and Instagram are also really good mediums for seeing again what people out there are using, and seeing what new types of things clinicians are trying to promote to enhance patient care and kind of enhance our own practice, through new technological advances. So that's my 2 cents on that. But
I mean, I agree with you, Max. I use social media. I think probably all three of us end up using social media a lot, especially Instagram for me. I have a lot of connections on Instagram. Especially when it comes to preventative strategies, a lot of physical therapists, a lot of personal trainers as well. You can utilize that in preventative strategies as well. So I definitely keep up with Instagram a lot, just because it has the nice, the characteristics of being able to see the video so that you can actually see exercises presented to you or the intervention presented to you, or pictures of it as well. So it's nice to be able to see that and not just read about it. Something that I also think is we often overlook when it comes to preventative strategies is things like simply having like group texting or utilizing your phones for messaging other clinicians, doctors, trainers, whatever you want to say. So that's something that I know I have a group message going on right now with a couple other clinicians, and we bounce ideas back off of each other about new preventative strategies. And sometimes technology does come up in there. For technology though, I have to say I don't keep up as much with finding out about new technology, but by reading newsletters, and especially like NATA, and keeping up with social media, I end up finding stuff out about new technology as well.
Yeah, I can attest to that. I haven't done the greatest job of keeping up with everything that's going on, but using social media as kind of like my outlet when I do find out about these things to make sure that other people learn about them too, whether it's other clinicians or patients. But I think we touched a lot on the pros of technology. I think it's such a good thing to have out there, and it gives us so many advances in healthcare. Are there any other cons that you kind of see?
I think that privacy can be a big issue. For me though, when I talked about the apps, probably the biggest con that I've noticed with apps is just a lack of evidence behind them. So, looking through some of these apps that are available on iPhones or Androids or whatever, they're really helpful, but when it comes to educating the general population or educating the patients, I think you really need to be careful about which apps you select to or suggest to them to use, just to make sure that at least if you know about the app and its strategies, then you are able to look up the evidence yourself and make sure that it's in line with everything. And then, before you suggest the app, I think educating the patient on the app and the evidence behind the app is also extremely important, so they understand what they're using and why they're using it. So yeah, the biggest con to me is evidence, but that's geared specifically towards apps.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'd say, if you're looking at, implementing an app or trying to get a patient to use it, before you even, tell them that they should consider this is, do your own personal research, like you were saying. The app has its own description. Look at the reviews, ask around about it, and then do your own research on it to see if it's effective or if it's worth your time, the patient's time, and worth their dollar.
Right.
So yeah, what do you think, Tara?
So I think some of the cons that I've seen overall, like looking into even the newsletter, Aaron Nelson touched on the fact that cost is a big part of this. So obviously there's some apps that are free, and there's some things you can do within your phone or your mobile device of like laptop or computer that is inexpensive. But obviously the three that I touched on that the Phoenix Suns use, not every organization kind of has the budget to keep up with those advances. And I think another thing to mention when talking about a potential con with technology is that it shouldn't stand alone. So there should still be the patient-clinician interaction, and a conversation has to be made. So like you guys both just touched on, even with the apps, is having that conversation with the patient to kind of explain to them, if there is no evidence, then why are we still using this, and still having that patient-clinician interaction. And not only do we want to integrate this into a holistic full-body approach, but we should just not use it as a means to get completely rid of in-person treatment. So for example, in my own clinical practice, I've been utilizing the Hep2Go program in order to send home exercise prescriptions home with patients. So this is just an online website basically that you can kind of plug and chug like different exercises into there, and it shows them a demonstration, and it kind of gives sets and reps and how many times per day, and that way I can send it as a printout, or I can email that to the patient to say, hey, continue doing these at home. But at the same time, that just opens up more time with me in the athletic training facility for treatment. So that's how I kind of balance that there, still having the patient-clinician interaction while also using it in conjunction with these technologies.
Yeah, actually, I might have to look into that program. a lot of my patients I write at home rehab programs for, so I think that would be very beneficial. So I may actually look into that. All right. So do we have any other closing statements or any other points we want to touch on before we head out?
I think I'm good.
All right. Elena, how are you doing over there? Or is there anything else you'd like to touch on?
I think Elena froze. We might have lost her in Lafayette.
All right. Yeah, it looks like there might be a storm or something over there. So, all right. Well, I want to thank you, Tara and Elena, if you can hear me.
Wow. I totally just got booted out. Yeah.
We're kind of just closing up here. So if you have any other, comments or anything.
I do. Technology doesn't always work. So that's another con. So yes. Okay. That's whatever.
Well, again, yeah, thank you, Tara and Elena, for coming on the show and taking time out of your busy morning. this was a really good talk. I think we'll have you guys on again sometime later in the future. So again, thank you, and thank you all for tuning in.
Thank you.
Thank you.